Welcome everyone to the webinar series, Have Greater Client Impact Today, hosted by the Ridge Project. My name is Brandon T. Arena, and I will be your MC. We have some amazing people presenting today. Ron and Catherine T. Arena, co-founders and co-executive directors of the Ridge Project. Scott Beck, co-founder, CEO of Glue. Dr. Jeff Frey, initiative lead at Glue. And Dylan Wilson, Initiative Manager, Creative Direction at Glue. The purpose of today's webinar is to describe Tyro, share best practices, and leverage technology. The agenda for today is the Ridge Project will talk and give a brief history, and then we'll move into Tyro, and then Glue will share how they are scaling Tyro, and then towards the end we'll have Q&A. So the presentation overview, see how to transform yourself or your organization into an effective catalyst for making positive impacts in the areas of healthy relationships, responsible fatherhood, and workforce development. We will introduce you to an essential tool for this transformation, the Tyro Digital Platform, TDP. This innovative solution for bridging the gap that exists between client/provider interactions is powered by the user's mobile digital engagement experience. We will show you how TDP greatly enhances an organization's ability to manage and track the people they serve by enhancing the case management relationship and providing real-time data tracking. First up, we have Ron and Catherine T. Arena sharing about the Ridge Project. Ron and Catherine T. Arena are nationally respected advocates for families, authors, and speakers. Through the Ridge Project, their dynamic and inspiring leadership has helped transform tens of thousands of lives across the country. The Ridge Project is a Christian nonprofit organization founded in 2000 and administers several unique programs. Thank you so much for being with us today, Ron and Kathy.
Thank you. We're excited to be here, and we're really excited to have so many of you on the conference call that are passionate about serving families and seeing transformation.
You know, this is a great honor for us. Here at the Ridge Project, our mission statement is to establish a path of honor, integrity, by way of education, motivation, and inspiration in order to lead families into a future defined by hope, peace, and righteousness for generations to come.
And our passion is to build a legacy of strong families, and we do that through three divisions. We have our youth division, which is separate, our adult division, which is separate, and workforce development. Our adult division, through our Tyros suite of programs, provides fathers and couples with the relational and social skills needed to develop strong family bonds. We work with fatherhood through our Tyro Dads program, healthy marriage, healthy relationship program, which is our couple and core communication, and also our workforce development, and we have a Tyro Jet, which is job ethics training.
Though we offer these highly effective programs to any person or couple, we specialize in working with families where their father is or has been incarcerated. And that is amazing to be able to see these families transform their lives from a mindset of entitlement to a mindset of working and providing.
And becoming leaders in their home and leaders in their community. You know, out of our personal experience, Ron was in prison for 15 years for a crime he didn't commit, but still the experience was so impactful on our family. And it was out of that experience that we developed this program to really reach into the lives of the most fragile and the most fragmented families. Among those that are incarcerated, RTI research showed when they looked at the families that they have half the marriage rates of the general population and twice the divorce rates of the general population, but the exact same paternity rates. And so when we think about really reaching out and bringing transformation to the most vulnerable population, the most struggling, then we're talking about those that are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated.
Our Tyro program, our Tyro Dads program, is our flagship. You know, there is no such thing as a disposable family. And that's what we teach these dads, that their family is not disposable, that they are worth saving. The Tyro is defined as a Latin word which means apprentice, novice, a young warrior, someone learning something new.
But what Tyro means to us is really founding father. It's the person, as we work with the dads, that are going to change their legacy. They're changing their legacy for not just themselves and their children, but for their children's children's children. And so a Tyro is someone who pursues learning and improvement for themselves and their family. And that's why when we think about the Tyro program, that's why we have to create it so holistically and in a way that continues engagement even beyond them actually showing up for the class.
And what Tyro does, it creates a new way of thinking. It brings a man with a new identity, and it helps them to really own their story and to be able to share their story no matter where they're at. The Tyrell Pledge,
which is really the code that the Tyros are learning to live up to.
I am a Tyro. I am a man of honor, integrity, and promise. I pursue all righteousness. I love my family. I will not put my family in harm's way. There is nothing that will keep me from doing the right thing. I am an ambassador of hope and a man of discipline. I am a man with following. I am a Tyro.
And this creates a new culture. So we attack the culture of poverty, the culture of incarceration, and help them create a new culture, a culture of honor and righteousness and pursuing work and their family. And so when we think about how we do what we do, this is our theory of change. And so you'll see this diagram in front of you that really breaks down how Tyro breaks generational cycles of poverty, incarceration, and entitlement. The very first person in that family generation, as they experienced either incarceration or poverty, the first thing that they experience is the shock. We can't believe we're here, and we're speaking from personal experience as well as the experience of the thousands of families we've worked with. And then the denial. You know, this can't be happening to me. This is wrong. You know, I'm different. I don't deserve this. And then anger, and then grief, and finally into acceptance. And this is a really key process. They have to go through this process to acceptance. But then at the point of acceptance, they really have a choice at this place.
They have a choice to either become a victim or a victor. Now, if they choose to become a victim, or they go into this self-pity mode, or the woe's me, or I wish I should have, could have, would have, this is when a man or a father would begin to repeat the cycle once again, and not really embracing this experience to become a victor and learning from it, and actually allowing this experience to become an event in their life, not a lifestyle.
Because that apathy then breeds complacency, which causes them to repeat those cycles in their family for generations. And so what Tyro does is it breaks that generational cycle and help them to understand that they can be a victor and overcome whatever it is that they've had to face in their life, no matter where they've come from. They have a chance. And that chance is through this transformation to first recognize where they are and how they got there, to rebuild, maybe it's communication, maybe it's rebuilding relationships, but then they also need to renew, because we don't want to just rebuild old things, but we want to make it fresh and healthy and new. We tell them there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. Practice makes permanent. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish permanent, healthy families. So after they renew, then they can reinvent themselves and their family.
And reinvent themselves is huge for a man who's living with the label that society doesn't want. When you have a felon on you and you're trying to get a job and you're trying to even move into a nice neighborhood, but once they find out that you're a former incarcerated person, it's hard to get society to give you a second chance. So here's an opportunity, once you become a Tyro, to reinvent yourself, to redefine what it means to be a man of honor, to be a man of good character and your family. And then more importantly, after you reinvent yourself, you get to reinvest. You get to reinvest back into your family, your community, and your state. And that's what's really exciting to see these Tyro men give back to their community. What once they were taking, they are now growing and giving back.
And now they're cycling back through this transformation, going back into recognize, rebuild, renew, reinvent, and reinvest as lifelong learning. So the Tyro program works in a variety of settings. We've used the Tyro program in prevention, so stopping men from going to prison or families ending up in poverty, diversion or pre-treatment, so if they're on probation instead of going to prison, inside of prisons, and so also the diversion and pre-treatment can be part of a drug and alcohol treatment facility, so inside institutions as part of a reentry program and also as part of parole.
One of the things that we here at the Ridge Project are really excited about is the Tyros and them getting jobs, really getting gainful employment. From October 2011 to to September 2014, 408 Tyros participants obtained employment after starting this program, after starting Tyro Dads.
So as they go through Tyro Dads, they become employable because they embrace the idea of being honorable and trustworthy, which makes them good employees. So if they completed Tyro Dads, they are earning between $7.50 an hour and $37.50 an hour, with an average of $13.27 per hour. What was really exciting is we also looked at the wages between those that completed the Tyro program versus those that didn't. And there was an over $3 an hour difference. If they completed the Tyro program, they were earning on average $3.50 more per hour than if they did not complete the Tyro program. So projecting conservatively that 70% of those who obtain employment after completing Tyro Dads retain their jobs full-time for 1 year at $13.27 per hour, they will collectively earn over $11 million annually. Actually, it's $11,457,425.
You know, the key thing with doing evaluations and having research companies come and look at your work and to see what it is you're doing, if it really is effective, are the outcomes. It's really important to be able to produce outcomes. Here we have 93.3% of Tyro Dad participants have improved in at least one responsible parenting or healthy marriage category. 97% of Tyro Dad participants reported a strong to very strong commitment to fatherhood after completion. 89% of Tyro Dad participants reported a strong to very strong feeling of hopefulness for their future.
And they were so motivated after taking the class that 97.6% of them said that they would highly recommend the program to others, which is actually how we do our recruitment. We don't even have to do official recruiting anymore because word of mouth is getting out.
Talk about outcomes right here. This is powerful. This is what brings a change. How do you move the needle of a culture where you're at? 3-year recidivism rate in the state of Ohio is 25.62%.
And specifically, that's for new crimes among males.
The Tyros, after the 3-year recidivism rate for Tyros is 16.35%.
Which is more than a 30% decrease in recidivism. Also, Tyros are 46.2% less likely to have an infraction than non-Tyros. And so as we teach practice makes permanent,
the communities inside the institutions are becoming safe. They're becoming a place of where trust is being built and infractions are decreasing.
So that way the men are learning to practice positive behaviors and be an asset and a contributor instead of an extractor from their environment. So as they transition home into their communities, the infraction rate is lower inside, the recidivism rate is lower on the outside. So our programs were either currently involved or have been evaluated by a variety of different institutions. You see here a list of some of the organizations that have either evaluated us or we're currently being evaluated by. And we decided to just show a snapshot of one of the pages from the Baylor University study that really just shows here that we thought was pretty amazing, that at 1 year, the return on investment of the tax dollars invested in this program is 312%.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to listen to myself, Ron Tiarina, and Kathy Tiarina, and we are Tyros.
Thank you guys so much. That is awesome. So we had some questions come in, and I just want to remind everybody that we're going to be doing a Q&A towards the end of the webinar, so you can keep them rolling, and at the end we'll have the experts talk about the answers. So next up we have Glue, and we have Scott Beck, who has served as COO of Blockbuster, CEO of Boston Market, and chairman of Einstein Bagels. Currently as CEO of Tango, Scott is the founder and CEO of Glue, a digital engagement platform that puts the power of technology where it matters most, in the hands of a person helping another person grow. And we have Dr. Jeff Frey, who is the vice president and a founding partner of Glue. He is a psychologist whose focus is on how engagement technology can extend the impact of the helping professions in the gap between face-to-face. Also with us, we have Dylan Wilson, who is the initiative manager at Glue. Thank you guys so much for being with us.
Thank you, Brandon. So Happy to have the opportunity to talk with you today. A little bit about Glue. Glue is a team of about 60 engineers and mobile content experts committed to serving champions. And we'll talk a little bit more about champions in a moment. Our background is really that of scaling. We scale organizations. We help them in whether it was Blockbuster Video, where we were involved from store number 1 all the way up to store number 4,000 when we sold that to Viacom in the early 90s. The stuff that we did with Ancestry.com as the original funding capital behind it. What we did with Boston Market and also Einstein Bagels. Throughout all of these organizations over the last, what's now close to 35 years, we've learned a lot about scaling. We've learned a lot about technology. It was a number of years ago, about 5, that we decided to, instead of putting 20% of our energy to help these champions, we decided to put 100% of our energy behind helping these champions. And what does that mean to serve a champion? Champions are people like the T Arenas. Some of the other champions that we work with are people like the University of Colorado Hospital, their behavioral health group, in terms of the drug and alcohol rehab programs that they have going on, or working with the USO and helping them as they're serving families, military families, trying to strengthen the relationships of those military families. In addition to serving those champions, we're helping them scale. We're working with them to be able to think about, when you can do it in one place, how are you able to go ahead and replicate that with a high degree of predictability, like we've done in so many other businesses, to be able to help those champions scale. And then ultimately to make technology support the core processes that really transform lives. One of the key things 5 years ago when we said, hey, let's go focus on serving champions with all the experience that we have, we spent time understanding the technological inevitabilities, what was really happening in technology. This picture is a great example of the Papal announcement, the exact same space, the exact same announcement, but in that mere 8 years you can see what's happened in terms of the web of screens that are in 2013, which is representing what happened in those 8 years as it relates to mobile. But more impactful even than that is that each one of those screens that you see is actually part of a broader network, where that broader network is reaching to every corner of the earth. How do we take those types of dramatic changes and put those in the hands of these champions who have proven their ability to transform lives? A little brief history. Teresa and I have been preparing, that's my wife, we've been preparing for a lifetime to be able to serve these champions. We started serving champions about 30 years ago when we created a foundation after some early financial success with Blockbuster. And over those years, we just continued to do that. As I said, 5 years ago, we shifted and we put our full-time focus on that. We started with a listening tour where we went out, and in the first year, we interviewed over 600, ultimately over 1,800 different champions across these different ecosystems. It's these interviews that brought us actually to Ron and Kathy and to the champions that we're serving today. One of the key things when we were going through those interviews is about 280 interviews in. About 280 interviews in, we realized that no matter how diverse the champions were, whether they were trying to help somebody in recovery or help a family, a military family, or they're trying to help somebody transition out of a prison back into their community, back into their family, and back into their workplace, they were all really doing at the lowest abstraction the same thing. We call that the champion core process. Champions connect with someone. Then immediately they need to get to know them. They need to understand where they're at, where they're coming from, so that then they can match them to the right curriculum or match them to the right program or match them to the right next steps that will catalyze them in their growth. What they do once they catalyze is they try to reconnect, re-know, match them to the same thing again, or maybe the next step. If they're making progress, catalyze them some more. And then ultimately, almost all champions have the same methodology. And that is that they want to have, as part of the person's growth process, them to actually start helping others. Just like Tyro has had so many people through their Tyro program that then have actually graduated to become facilitators and be able to start changing other people's lives. But in that core process, the other thing that we really became acutely aware of was what we call the primacy of face-to-face. See, technology's role from our standpoint is not to eliminate face-to-face. No, that face-to-face, that life-on-life is absolutely critical. The bonds that are created between that facilitator and that Tyro that's going through that program, that life-on-life experience is absolutely critical. So the role of technology is what we call engagement in the gap. And it's that engagement in the gap, that time between face-to-face times together, where the program and the curriculum can start to take hold in a person's life, and they can start to do the practices, and they can start to do the exercises associated with that then tease them up to be ready for that next step. What I'd like to do now is introduce Jeff Frey and have him, Dr. Frey, and have him step in and talk a little bit more about this engagement in the gap.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for all of you out there. It's such a delight to be here. I was just thinking about the years of doing clinical work. When a client would come in the room, I would connect with them. You're automatically sort of thin slicing and trying to understand where the person's at. So you want to know something about them to match even the comments and the flow of conversation to where they're at. All with the goal of catalyzing them to self-awareness or to personal commitment or actions, anything that really led them down the path of personal transformation. And ultimately, we know that the personal growth cycle is really completed when people start giving away what they've received. When people start reaching out and helping others, we see dramatic improvement in overall mental health. But the limiting constraint that I dealt with, that I think the helping professions and people transformation professions have had for years, is how do we make the gap really productive in extending the impact and the influence of what goes on in face-to-face. So as we really explored that and looked at what behavioral engagement design really looks like, so that we can actually find really effective engagement patterns, that we can take the face-to-face experience and then make the gap really rewarding in the person's growth track. One of the areas we learned a lot from was really actually game technology, because as we know that gamers have really, game companies have really figured out how to keep people engaged. And we have, for example, if the question was, what if human beings spent 6 million years doing, the answer would be playing World of Warcraft, which is a pretty stunning example. So what can we learn from them? Well, out of the Stanford University, one of this key design right here is really powerful. The idea that there's a trigger. The trigger creates an invitation to an action, and the action leads to a reward. If we stop there at reward, what we found is that engagement really tails off. But that last chunk there called investment is super important. You might think of an example would be if you're on Facebook and you've responded to a friend who's posted there and you shared a picture. That action of sharing a picture starts to make that Facebook place more valuable. So we think about that as you're designing engagement content in the gap, for example, this is a key area where we've learned. There's some other models that really apply well that are built into the platform, but I wanted to share this specific one with you.
This is Scott Beck again. In addition, one of the important learnings was the power of platform. And platform is one of the most powerful things that's happening today. See, because ultimately technology is not about an app. Real technology that's going to really release the power of a collective community, and that's ultimately what it's going to take in order for these lives to be transformed, is only going to happen as a result of people being on a common platform. Where you find the Tyro platform that has got the Tyro dad on that platform, and it also has got the facilitator on the platform as well. The family members need to become part of that platform. It needs to be architected in such a way where any of these folks can be contributing and any of these folks can be benefiting. The agencies that are involved in the life of that Tyro need to be able to be on that same platform. The employers need to be able to be there so that they can be getting assessments from the Tyros so that they can understand which of these Tyros are most likely to be successful within their organizations and which of these organizations are presenting job opportunities that these Tyros can respond to. Other agencies like the parole boards need to be part of that overall community, the community resources themselves, and what we call the Tyro fraternity. It's that group of men that then bond together and are able to walk one another through life as they're moving through life, so that they have that ongoing ability to be champions in one another's lives. The challenge, as we talked about, is really the idea that there's the gap. The Tyro program is there with the Tyro dads and the facilitators and the case managers, but there's the gap. And it's in that gap that we really have an opportunity to really fill that gap.
Let's just take a few minutes and just look at some of the ways that we can actually make the gap really effective in the Tyros' lives. There are things like resources that are readily available, extended curriculum, and you're going to see some examples briefly that the Ridge Group created to extend the curriculum. So what that enables a person to do is in the gap to have those kind of prompts, maybe quizzes, maybe related stories of inspiration that help continue the learning that's being dealt with in a particular session. The ability to use community, so where there's groups and ways for people to communicate, connect with, have discussions, just even around that community. The data and analytics that flows back from the Tyro dad in this example is really super powerful for a facilitator and then the organization to really actually have real-time information on how engaged is that Tyro in the gap, and then the prompts that can come to that facilitator that actually they can turn around and prompt that Tyro to maybe it's do their homework or participate in the group. Those are some examples. The best practices, how we use assessments, continuing education in the case of the facilitator. If you look in the bottom green on the right there, the Tyro program then creates a really extremely valuable place for the facilitator to be able to manage the case and deal with their responsibilities actually between the sessions. So we like to think around here, we borrowed this quote, but the desperately necessary meets with the suddenly possible, and that's the substance of breakthroughs happening. And that's how we're thinking about the Tyro platform and how it will be able to really make that gap come alive for both Tyros and the facilitators.
Hey everybody, this is Dylan. Thanks, Doc. We've been working with Ridge for the last year and a half or so to really bring a lot of these concepts and ideas to life. We have been developing, we have been deploying, we've been measuring what's been out in the field both in Ohio and in Texas, and rapidly iterating on both the platform, the technology that supports everything, and then also the content and the process and the way that we're delivering this content to Tyros within that gap. Tyro's currently delivered through a 12-workshop curriculum where they're meeting face-to-face. And so our charge has been to figure out, not to disintermediate that face-to-face in any way, but really support that in the gap, keeping clients engaged, and also giving facilitators the data and analytics they need to serve those clients better. And so I'm going to walk through really quickly here a demo of sorts and show you what we've been up to for the last year and a half, and then also give you a preview as to what we will be releasing in the months to come. So all of our clients are first onboarded into essentially a digital class home. And so their facilitator is the owner of this home. They are given in class, in that face-to-face, they're given an access code. And so once they put in that access code, they are connected to their facilitator and brought into that class space. And so they have their class program, they have a group for each one of their classes, and then they also have resources that they use in class, kind of like the pledge, the Tyrell Pledge that Ron had mentioned and went through previously. And so this is where their first stop in coming into their class. The groups, as I mentioned, are a really integral part into the way that we're engaging clients in the gap. It's creating a safe place for growth where they can have conversations and really practice that pro-social group interaction that we're going for. This video right here is actually of a live class that's happening in Texas. You can see graduation pictures from the class before it. People are just, taking daily snapshots of themselves and engaging there. The facilitators are posting content for these clients to go through and engage in. And then, obviously serving them through case management and, general mentorship as people are posting concerns, asking for help, or even just giving everybody a general update of when the next class is. Another interesting thing that happens in these groups is, the conversation is facilitated by the facilitator, the leader of that group, but the conversation is also prompted by content. And so as these clients are going through, as these Tyros are going through the program, the content is driving them to post things to the group, which causes group interaction. And then they're also conversing with each other to drive that interaction as well. So the workshop content, this is really the core of what we're asking clients to go through in the gap. We started with strategic goals. So, as we're engaging Tyros, what is it that we want them to be doing in those times between face-to-face workshops? We want them to be reflecting on their learning, of course. We want them to be encouraged by hearing stories of others. We want them to take action, so going forth and do and apply their learning, and then also to be able to track their progress. And so we've kind of developed that. This video will roll through. At the top, we have kind of a workshop recap video. Then we give them a high-level, almost SparkNotes version recap of what happened in the workshop. And then we give them a series of action items or homework. So they can check off their homework live on the platform here. If they have a question about any of these items, they can pop in for more info. So, what do you mean, or what are you asking me to do in this action? And then we're also encouraging them with stories of others, like I had mentioned before. So here they're watching a video of a Tyro who's previously finished the program. And after they finish that video, they're asked, hey, why do you want to be a Tyro? And so here they're essentially journaling through the platform and posting to their own journal space. And so as they go through the curriculum, they're essentially collecting these notes and artifacts that they're keeping in their own personal journal. The curriculum's also driving them to have group conversation with their class group and so forth.
All investments.
These are all just as an example, as we were looking at that behavioral engagement model that Dr. Frey was taking a look at, where we had that trigger, action, reward, and investment. Those are the investments that we're talking about. And so we've learned that if you can drive somebody to do a little bit of extra work. So in that case, for example, creating a journal as they go through the curriculum, that's what really drives them to come back to that place. That's what creates the platform or makes the platform their place to grow. And so we're always trying to drive that loop of trigger, action, reward, and investment, and being very sticky with our investments so that we establish that. The other thing that we have throughout the workshop curriculum are a series of assessments. These we developed with the Tyro team to figure out, hey, what are the assessments that we can deliver to Tyros, to clients who are going through the class that's going to help them learn more about themselves, and also give them action steps towards growth in that specific area. But then also are giving facilitators in the program information for where these guys are at so that they can serve them better. This one that we're going to take a quick look at is in the first workshop, and we are basically driving guys through an assessment that is asking them, hey, do you struggle with pride? Do you struggle with selfishness? Or are you maybe even struggling with anger, right? So we're trying to surface some of those things they might have a struggle with and giving them ideas for improvement. And so here they're answering a few questions. Once they complete these questions, for example, I only give gifts when I expect one in return, always, usually, sometimes, rarely, never. They're delivered an insight or a quiz result. So, in this case, I'm struggling with pride. This is what that means for my life. This is how that affects others around me. And then swinging up, this is how I can improve that and what those improvements may look like. These are all sprinkled throughout the curriculum and are easily modularized. And so, as we're trying to do research, or if we get grants to do research, we can tweak and change some of these questions in the assessments. We can create new assessments. And so, the nice thing about having these assets digital is that we can really adjust things on the fly to collect the data and information that we need. The other assessment that we have is really a longitudinal assessment. And so as soon as clients start the program, we have them take what we call their first Tyro check-in. We developed this with the Tyro team and tried to figure out what are 5 questions that we would ask to Tyros, people who are in our class every day, to help us understand where they're at so that we can serve them better, but also give them a snapshot of where they're at along their journey. And so this is delivered by a push notification on a daily basis. And so we ask them, hey, how is your attitude today? I'm ranking a 5. How much time did you spend with your children face-to-face? How much time did you spend with lames or people who are bringing you down or back to the things that you were doing previously? Did you stick to your fast today, and were you a Tyro? And so then they're delivered a result immediately. The first one's their Tyro trend there. So we weight each of those questions in the previous set. So if you hung out a lot with your kids, it's +10. If you hung out with lames or somebody who's dragging you down, it's -20. And so as they go along that trend line, they'll be able to measure, hey, am I trending Tyro or am I trending towards trouble? You'll also see their attitude and their commitments all in one graph. This is stuff that the end user is seeing, but also the facilitator as well. And then once they click out of that, they can go to what we call My Performance. And so this section is essentially a dashboard for all their activity through the program. So they have workshops completed. We're clicking in right here through quiz results that they've completed. So, as we finish that quiz that we just went through, or take any other quizzes, I can go back to my dashboard to remind myself and click on that result to read it and refresh myself of what I wanted to do in my growth process. This has been really powerful. It's been an interesting tool to show clients how they're doing, and then facilitators have been using this just to get a temperature on their class and individuals in general as to how they're doing in those gaps and how they're progressing. The other thing that we have, even outside of that core curriculum, outside of those assessments, and outside of that daily check-in that we just took a look at, are short-term challenges. It's a framework to deliver daily action items to individuals that are going to drive their growth. And so if we have a series of short-term challenges that are focused around career. And so clients are going through, they're taking a quick assessment to see which of the programs or workshop development opportunities that Ridge has that they're interested in doing after they complete the Tyro Dads program. And so, for example, let's say I want to try to get my CDL or drive a truck. They're entered into this 7-day program that's delivering a push notification to them every day with an action item that's going to get them closer to understanding what it means to get a CDL, the types of licensing opportunities that they provide, and kind of the next steps in their application process. The good thing about this is, one, it's allowing clients to do their own work in small bits on a daily basis, but it's also allowing the facilitators who are running the program an ability to see in a snapshot who in their class is interested in what, and if they're actually doing the pre-work in the gap that's going to get them there. And so then, you know, once they have a client that's going through and has chosen CDL, they complete their 7-day challenge. At the end of their 7-day challenge, their call to action is to have a face-to-face time with their facilitator to talk about action steps. And so,
let me interrupt 1 second,
yeah.
Dylan, because I think it's also a great example of the trigger action reward investment model at work. Because there's the challenge comes to you as a trigger. You start going through the material, the reward or insights, things that you're learning, and it always comes back down to this action, those green boxes. And that action then, that's an invitation to make an investment, because then they post that to their to-do list, and they're making a choice to take a further step.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's basically acting as a filter so that the facilitator can see who in their class is really interested in doing the hard work that it takes to go through these programs, which has been super helpful. The last thing is kind of where all these things come together on the facilitator side. This is what their dashboard looks like for their class. And so right now we're looking at content or curriculum progress. We're looking at growth, so those are the longitudinal assessments, that daily check-in, those quizzes. The facilitator can zoom out of this view, so this is a very specific class. You pop out one view and you're able to see all of your classes that are open. Vicky and Kwana only have one right now. And then for Ridge, their administrators can take a look at all of the facilitators who are in the field, see how many clients they have currently going through GAP curriculum, how many members are in the groups, and how many workshops have been completed. But then we can also see that same data and information aggregated across the entire organization to see how we're doing as a whole. And this is all real time. And so you're able to see at any given moment how an individual is doing, how the group is doing, how a facilitator is doing, etc. And so what we just looked at was really just our first effort. That's the last year and a half. Again, we've iterated and redeveloped and redeployed this. We've surveyed. We have weekly meetings with facilitators to get feedback on what we should create next, what kind of data would be helpful to them. And so all of that effort has led to where we're at today. And so in the next month, we are redeploying a new version of the program that's taking all those learnings from the last year and a half, refining feature sets around that, but then also building a new set of features that's going to allow for an even more powerful experience. And so, for example, this is a quick snapshot of what we're calling the Tyro Platform 2.0. If you remember the performance dashboard where they're able to see their progression through content, their progression through assessments, and their daily check-ins, this is that place. And so the dashboard serves to help users understand where they're at in their growth, but then also what to do next. So, for example, we have a module on the top here where they're resuming their content through the program. As if they had completed Workshop 1, they could restart Workshop 2. They're able to see their progress through each of these workshops in a quick snapshot. And then they also have those spaces as well. So just like we had our class space in the previous one, we have those same class spaces here. Just as we had our journal space in the previous one, we have our same journal space here. And we've also updated our space features. And so the class group looks a little bit more like this, where it's synchronous live chatting with clients who are in your program. This is Al Howard, who's a facilitator who teaches Tyra at Ridge. He's saying to his class, hey, it was great to see you all today. I appreciate you making it out. He also posted content Workshop 2, just to remind his class to do that before the next round. They're also able to see their quiz assessments in the same way that we did previously, their longitudinal check-in data. Those resources all show up in the same place. And you know, one of the learnings that we had from this last year and a half is, if you remember those check boxes where Tyros were going through and picking up homework assignments and action items towards their growth, we've abstracted that out of the content and made that a core platform feature. And so now as Tyros are going through the program, they're selecting which action items they want to add to their to-do list up here on the right. And so you can see, hey, I have my workshop assignments, I have my CDL challenge, I have some personal tasks and to-dos like calling home or calling my kids. But the really powerful thing about it, taking this out of the content, is that now facilitators, as they go into their view, they can drill into an individual after they have a conversation about, hey, I finished the CDL challenge, what should I do next? So he can click on an individual add an action item that's specific to them, that's delivered to nobody else but them. He can add reminders so that it's a recurring action item, or he can have it be delivered on a specific date, and that all shows up on their client's dashboard instantly. So this quick view right here is the facilitator's same view of that class experience. And so the facilitator has their handbook, which is their guide through each class and what they need to do to prepare for it, and what they need to do to have a successful class. They're also seeing the class analytics in aggregate. They're able to do their case management in the same place, so they can review the Tyros case, they can take attendance for the class, and then they can also collect case notes. Down here we're seeing those assessments, so that anger, selfishness, and pride, a class aggregate snapshot, and if we click into any of these views, you can drill down to each individual and what they got on the assessments, where they're at in the curriculum, and how they're doing.
Hey Dylan, take a moment to talk about both mobile and web views of this content.
Yeah, and so one of the other improvements that we had made in our shift from the last year and a half to where we're at now is allowing for both mobile and web. And so right now we're looking at a web view, but it's this same view, all the same content experiences, all this same case management abilities will also be available mobile. And so you'll be able to have an interaction or engagement experience on a desktop, but also have that same thing in your pocket. So whether you're a Tyro or a facilitator teaching that class, you have that community and that curriculum at your fingertips. This is an example of, we had the class space for the Tyro class. This is an example of facilitators using that same space to grow each other. And so, one facilitator is talking about their experience, and they tweaked how they delivered the mirror workshop, for example. And then other facilitators are able to learn from that experience and try that delivery method, that in-class delivery method, and see how it works for them. The last thing that has been that I'll go over, I guess, right now is a really big improvement is that we are leveraging the same type of social features that you find on like a Facebook or Twitter and bringing that into this champion growth context. So as clients and Tyros are going through the platform, they're not only engaging in that class space with their group, but they're also following their classmates, following their profiles and their posts. They're following their facilitators, and so this is their follow view. And so if I'm a Tyro, this is what I would be looking at in my feed of everyone who I follow associated with the program. So Al Howard, who would be my facilitator, he's posting a new welding job opportunity near Cincinnati that I could hop on and apply for. Ron and Kathy, for example, are posting inspirational quotes and program updates, but then I'm also connected to other guys in my class, like I had mentioned before. Vince here is asking for help because he's making a move and got a new job. And this is powerful because we're gonna, when Tyros have this type of experience and this type of connection to each other outside and after and even during the program, you're essentially creating a network where people can grow each other, grow themselves, and also be served by the Tyro program and then other champions in that same place. So that is all I got, and I'm going to hand it back to you, Brandon.
All right. Thank you so much, Dylan and Scott Beck and Dr. Frey. We're going to go ahead and turn it back over to Catherine Tiarina and Ron Tiarina, and they're going to kind of talk about the Tyro platform.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dylan.
Thanks, Brandon.
And Scott and Jeff and Brandon. We really wanted to talk about the really exciting things that this mobile digital technology have brought into our program. And so when I think back to when we first started the Ridge Project 15 years ago and having to create processes and create the ability to track our classes and the class evaluations and the attendance and the case notes and the groups and get all of our assessments and our pre and post surveys, and then waiting so long every time we take an evaluation, waiting until we had time to collate the results before we actually know the results. And then looking at how far we've come, I am just amazed. So with this digital platform, now applications can be filled out on there, assessments can be taken. If we decide that, let's say a funder says, hey, do you have any information about this? And maybe it's information we hadn't been collecting. We can just quickly put out a survey to everybody on the platform. They can take this quick survey, and we can have the data within a day. And it's just amazing where we are today. Class attendance can all be taken on the digital platform, class notes, all the case notes on individuals.
You know, case notes is a very important. One of the things that we stressed here at the Ridge Project, that if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. And so, you know, our facilitators are meeting a lot of individuals and a lot of families, and so they got to take notes. But how do you capture that in real-time data? And that's where this mobile digital, or this Tyro platform, really comes in handy. It really takes the time away from having to waste a lot of time in handwriting everything and then double printing and putting it into computers and everything else. So we are really excited about capturing the real-time data that is needed for them to help these families get on the right track.
It also reduces human error, because when we think about real-time data and we think about them answering actually on the platform, now it increases transparency and it increases accountability. So as they're answering the questions, all of that is being collected and reported immediately, which is really incredible, because it helps us to determine and to track our facilitator process and their progress, as well as being able to track our individual client process and progress.
You know, in other words, what Kathy is talking about is if a facilitator in one area is having outstanding results, and we can determine that with the outcomes from the Tyra platform, we can also look at another facilitator in another area in the state and see how they're doing, and we can compare the two to see, okay, why is this one having great outcomes and this one is not maybe doing such a bang-up job as the other one is? What is the glitch? What is the problem? And this we're able to go and help the facilitators really enhance what they're delivering in real time.
So we can actually identify the problem before it becomes a problem. Another thing we really like about the class groups is now if the facilitator wants to get a message, let's say that classes are postponed, or there's a fog day or an ice day, or that there's a special event coming up and they want to encourage the participants to come or to bring their kids or whatever it is. Now, instead of sending out a million texts or making a bunch of phone calls or sending out a bunch of letters, they just post to the class group and everybody gets it. Which is really an incredible opportunity to really enhance communication and surround them with that ongoing support and accountability. The real-time analytics, we talked a little bit about that, but how that relates to real-time analytics and being able to collect data on the platform for our grant reporting just streamlines everything, makes everything just our data reporting manager, as we began to do this, she did a little happy dance, and she loves data. She loves to go through the spreadsheets, but she was so excited when we think about streamlining the process of grant reporting, which just enables us to be even better stewards of dollars and better stewards of the people's lives that we're trying to impact. Because now we're providing the absolute best service that we possibly can. We're evaluating it all around the way, the entire journey, and we are able to report that back to our funders.
What's really exciting is the connected alumni community. Now, this is where you get mom and the kids and the dad that you're working with really involved in the progress that's taking place with dad, and getting them engaged in becoming Tyros. And what we're hearing now is the children and the mothers really excited about becoming Tyros themselves.
And the last thing that we really want to talk about and hit pretty hard on is the multiple partners serving in one place. And so that means we have a lot of community partners, we have a lot of agency partners, we have government partners. Now everybody can be in one place on this platform and surround this individual with whatever services, and the cross referrals are so much easier. The case management is streamlined, and it is I just told somebody this is the best thing since peanut butter and jelly.
This is really going to revolutionize social services as we know it today. It's going to help connect so many partners together to where everybody can have the real-time data and information that is needed to help these families become successful and really reach that American dream.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ron and Kathy. So we had some questions come in. So Ron, this one I think you could answer. How long has Tyro been around?
Wow, that is a great question. Tyro actually was first introduced in prison while I was incarcerated. Really, what does it mean to be a man with following? You know, the greatest thing a man has in his life is he needs to be taken at his word. And then when we came across the word Tyro, it really encapsulated that concept, being taken at your word. So I think about About 15 years.
Awesome, thank you. So, this question's for you too, Ron. Is the Tyro program only for in prisons, or is it used outside of a prison setting?
It's used inside and outside, and that's a great question because we now are we've worked with some companies with men who've never been incarcerated, and they're currently employed. They're doing well. They've never been on welfare or any type of entitlements. But the companies want to make them better and get these guys, their employees, to show up more on time and everything else. And so they've asked us to come in and deliver Tyro to their current employees. So it's really for everyone.
Awesome. And you guys can continue to, for the viewers out there, you can continue to post questions in the chat, and we'll answer them as they come in. So this one, again, for you and Kathy and Ron, is Tyro only used by the Ridge Project, or do other organizations use it?
Yeah, actually, there's other organizations that are using the Tyro program that have duplicated or replicated this outreach, one in Dallas, Texas, and then we're working with one with another organization in Michigan and another organization in Alabama.
Great. Dylan, this one's for you. How will this be able to help, so how will the Tyro platform be able to help eliminate job barriers for clients?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brandon. You know, I think it's one of the things that's powerful about where we're going is the ability to set goals. You know, there's a lot of common barriers to employment. And so, you know, what we plan to do is set those up, and similarly to how we saw those short-term challenges delivered previously, but essentially acting as a series of goals and checklists for clients to start to jump over those barriers to employment. So things like getting your driver's license, right? Things like having a resume and filling out an application. Things like, you know, and so forth. And so we are going to be able to take those common barriers, set them as goal metrics inside of the system that is displayed to that client, and so they know exactly what they need to do to be employable. The other thing, and I think that we hit on previously, is those multiple partners serving in one place. So as Tyros are going through the program, making the platform their place, employers like CDL providers, trucking companies, welding companies, we will have those employers in the same place so that they can see how Tyros are progressing through the program, deliver them assessments and applications through the platform, and drive them directly from program completion into employment.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan. So here's another question. How is the gap filled with guys on the inside? Do they have access to technology, i.e. phones or computers?
Yeah, we've been working on getting inside. There's a lot of requirements, as you can imagine, with a platform that's like this to get inside of a prison. And so there's technology providers who are inside, and we are working on what it looks like to partner with them to deliver this program in there, and working on those requirements to do so. Right now, we're currently operating primarily on the outside.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we have time for one more question. So is it possible to determine if a client is intrinsically motivated to change, and if so, how? For you, Ron and Kathy, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it really is. And I really think that as a client comes in, that the first motivation is actually that they sign up, because the program is completely voluntary. And so it's you know, that something's motivating them, and so finding out what it is that's motivating them is possible by asking leading questions. So you do motivational interviewing, face-to-face meetings, and then the facilitator can determine if the client is motivated to change, and specifically in what areas. And then the mobile digital just helps us to surround them with the case management to be able to help them achieve that change.
Awesome, thank you so much. Thank you, Glue. Thank you, Ridge Project, for taking time to be with us today. And so thank you guys for tuning in. You can find this recorded webinar at theridgeproject.com. You can click the link in the middle of the home page. It will most likely be labeled "Click here to view the recorded Have Greater Client Impact Today" webinar series. You also have some contact information for Tim Snoke, Director of Development, and the phone number there is 419-278-0600. 0092.